My sister died doing exactly what I'd begged her not to do. She was ziplining through a rainforest in Costa Rica when the cable snapped, 32 years old, laughing 1 second, gone the next. And I was at home, in my carefully organized apartment, meal prepping for the week and avoiding risks like I always did. Her death didn't just break my heart, it shattered the entire way I'd been living. My name is Claire. I'm 35 now, but this story starts 3 years ago when I was convinced that safety was the same thing as wisdom. My sister Ava and I were opposites from birth. She was the kid who climbed trees I was too scared to look up at, the teenager who backpacked through Europe while I stayed home studying for the SATs, the woman who quit stable jobs to teach English in Thailand, surf in Bali, hike Patagonia. She collected experiences, I collected security. Our parents worried about her constantly. When is she going to settle down? They'd ask me, as if I had any control over a force of nature. When is she going to get serious about her life? I'd shrug, but secretly I agreed with them. Ava's life seemed reckless, irresponsible, like she was gambling with something precious and pretending the odds didn't matter. Meanwhile, I had everything figured out. Corporate job with benefits, 401k, health insurance, emergency fund with 6 months of expenses. I color-coded my calendar. I never missed a deadline. I lived in a safe neighborhood, drove a reliable car, and always wore my seatbelt. You might be wondering if I was happy. I told myself I was. I told myself I was being smart while Ava was being foolish. But here's what I didn't want to admit. Every time Ava posted photos from some remote mountain or crowded street market in a country I couldn't pronounce, I felt something twist in my chest. Envy maybe, or regret, or the uncomfortable suspicion that she was living and I was just existing. The call came on a Thursday morning. I was at my desk, responding to emails, drinking my usual coffee, 2 creams, 1 sugar, same as every day. My phone rang, unknown number, international code. I almost didn't answer. I had a meeting in 15 minutes. But something made me pick up. Is this Claire Jensen? The voice was American, female official. Yes. I'm calling from the US Embassy in Costa Rica. I'm very sorry to inform you that your sister, Ava Jensen, was involved in an accident yesterday. The word accident is interesting. It sounds temporary, fixable, like a fender bender or a sprained ankle. Is she okay? I asked. Silence, the kind that tells you everything before the words do. I'm so sorry, the voice said. She didn't survive. I remember staring at my computer screen, at the spreadsheet I'd been working on, at the little green indicator showing I was available on the company chat. I remember thinking, this can't be right. Ava doesn't die. Ava is the most alive person I know. What happened? I heard myself ask. There was a ziplining incident. The equipment failed. She fell approximately 70 feet. The impact was, it would have been instant. Instant, as if that made it better. As if the speed of death somehow lessened its permanence. We need you to contact us regarding arrangements for. I hung up, just pressed the red button and ended the call. Then I sat there, in my ergonomic office chair, under fluorescent lights, surrounded by people typing and talking and existing like the world hadn't just stopped. The funeral was exactly what Ava would have hated. Dark clothes, whispered condolences, people who barely knew her saying she was in a better place and at peace now. She wasn't at peace. She was 32. She was in Costa Rica. She was supposed to come home in 2 weeks and tell me about this adventure over cheap wine and takeout like she always did. My parents were wrecked, completely shattered. My father kept saying, I told her to be careful, I told her. As if warning someone could prevent gravity, as if love were enough to keep people safe. After the funeral, I went back to work, because that's what you do, right? You take your 3 days of bereavement leave, and then you return to your desk, and you pretend productivity matters when your sister is dead. But I couldn't focus. I'd sit in meetings and think, Ava will never be in another meeting. She'll never be bored or frustrated or stuck in traffic or annoyed by a coworker's loud chewing. She'll never be anything. At night, I'd lie awake scrolling through her Instagram. Hundreds of photos, mountains, beaches, strangers who'd become friends, street food, sunsets, her face, always laughing, always sunburned, always fully, completely alive. And I'd look at my own profile. Brunch photos, latte art, my apartment, safe, curated, carefully filtered moments that added up to exactly nothing. 3 weeks after she died, I had to clean out her apartment. My parents couldn't do it, so I went alone. Her place was tiny, studio in a questionable neighborhood. No security deposit because she told the landlord she might leave at any moment. Everything she owned fit in 2 suitcases and a backpack. But it was full, you understand, the space was full. Books with pages dog-eared and notes in the margins, postcards from 30 countries pinned to the walls, a jar of sea glass collected from beaches around the world, a guitar she taught herself to play, hiking boots worn thin, a journal. I sat on her bed, unmade of course. Ava never made her bed, and I opened the journal. The last entry was dated 2 days before she died. It said, "Claire called again asking when I'm going to get serious. I wish I could make her understand that this is me being serious, about life, about actually living it while I can. She thinks I'm running away from something, but I'm running toward everything. I just wish she'd run with me." I closed the journal, put it down, and I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a child. The ugly kind, the kind where you can't breathe and your whole body shakes and you make sounds that don't seem human. Because she was right. I'd been so busy being safe that I'd forgotten to live. The breaking point came 4 months after Ava died. I was at my desk, same spreadsheet, same coffee, same fluorescent lights. And I realized I'm going to die here. Not literally, but in every way that mattered. I was going to spend 40 years in this chair, doing work that didn't matter to me, living for weekends that I'd spend doing laundry and meal prep, and then I'd retire and wonder where my life had gone. And the worst part, I'd thought this was the smart choice, the responsible choice, the safe choice. I walked out, middle of the workday, didn't tell anyone, just stood up, grabbed my purse and left. I drove to the airport. I didn't have a plan, didn't have a ticket. I just stood in front of the departure board, staring at all those cities, Mexico City, Lisbon, Tokyo, Cape Town, and I thought about Ava. She would have closed her eyes and pointed, would have picked whichever place her finger landed on and gone. I couldn't do that, not yet. I wasn't Ava. I wasn't built for spontaneous international adventure. But I could start somewhere. I bought a ticket to Seattle. It was the cheapest flight leaving in the next 2 hours that went somewhere I'd never been. I texted my parents, "I'm okay. I need to go somewhere. I'll call you tomorrow." Then I turned off my phone and got on the plane. In Seattle, I didn't have a hotel reservation, didn't have a plan. I just walked, for hours, through Pike Place Market, along the waterfront, up steep hills where my legs burned and my lungs ached. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt awake. I ended up in a hostel, shared room, 5 other people, a girl from Germany, a guy from Australia teaching English in South Korea, 2 college students road tripping across America. We stayed up until 3 in the morning talking, about travel, about dreams, about the things we were scared to do. And I told them about Ava, about how she died doing what she loved, about how I'd been living like death was something you could avoid if you just stayed careful enough. The German girl said something I'll never forget. "Your sister didn't die because she took risks. She died because that's what humans do. We die, but at least she was living first." I didn't quit my job immediately. I'm still not Ava. I need some structure, some security. But I changed it. I went part-time, took a massive pay cut, liquidated half my savings account, and I started traveling. Not constantly, not recklessly, but regularly. Once every few months I go somewhere I've never been. I've been to Iceland, Portugal, Vietnam, New Zealand, places Ava had been and places she'd planned to go. I don't post much about it on social media. This isn't about proving anything. It's about actually experiencing something. Here's what I learned: safety is an illusion. You can eat organic and exercise daily, and save money and never jaywalk, and still get diagnosed with cancer at 40. You can avoid airplanes and end up hit by a car in a crosswalk. You can do everything right and still die young. Or you can do everything wrong and live to 90. There's no correlation, no contract you can sign with the universe that says, "I'll be careful and in exchange you'll keep me safe." So the question isn't, how do I stay safe? The question is, how do I want to spend the time I have? I think about Ava every day. I talk to her actually, out loud like she's still here. I tell her about the mountains I've hiked, the food I've tried, the strangers I've talked to, the things that scared me and the things I did anyway. Last month I went ziplining. In Costa Rica, at a different location than where she died, but still, I went. My hands were shaking when they hooked me into the harness. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to back out, to stay safe, to not tempt fate. But I thought about Ava, about that last journal entry, about how she'd wanted me to run toward life with her. So I jumped. And for 30 seconds I flew, over the rainforest canopy, with the wind in my face and my heart in my throat and tears streaming down my cheeks. And I swear to you I felt her there with me, laughing, celebrating, saying, finally, finally you get it. I'm not going to tell you that grief gets easier. It doesn't. 3 years later, I still cry. I still have moments where I forget she's gone and reach for my phone to call her. But the grief changed shape. It's not just loss anymore. It's also love. It's also gratitude. It's also this fierce, urgent reminder that life is short and precious and absolutely not guaranteed. Ava didn't die because she was reckless. She died because she was human, because we're all mortal and fragile and temporary. But she lived first, really lived, and her death gave me permission to do the same. So here's what I want you to hear: you're going to die. I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but you are, and so am I, and so is everyone you love. And you can spend your life trying to prevent it, eating kale, avoiding risks, staying in your comfort zone, playing it safe. Or you can accept it, and then ask yourself, given that my time here is limited, how do I want to spend it? What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you try if failure wasn't permanent? Who would you become if you stopped protecting yourself from every possible hurt? I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring it out. I still get scared. I still play it safe sometimes. But now, when I'm faced with a choice between comfort and growth, between safety and experience, between the known and the unknown, I think about Ava. I think about her laugh and her fearlessness and her absolute conviction that life was meant to be lived, not survived. And then I choose differently than I used to. I carried her journal with me everywhere I go, in my backpack, in whatever hotel or hostel or spare room I'm sleeping in that week. And sometimes, late at night, I write in it, continuing her story, telling her about the adventures I'm having because of her. The last thing I wrote was this: you were right, Ava, about all of it. I'm sorry it took losing you to teach me how to live, but I promise I'm living now, for both of us. She would have liked that. If this story made you think about how you're living your life, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me one thing you're taking away from Claire's story.